Welcome to Sexy Mom Abundant Life with best-selling author and coach Kathy Williams, a show to help you tap into the support of the universe and access the abundance that's available in every area of your life. Listen in for conversations and tools to create more ease, joy, and possibility with family, relationships, business, and living. Kathy's joyful perspective will help you tap into your own wisdom and create a life of presence and abundance your way. Listen live on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, or anytime on iTunes or at OMFM.
Welcome to Sexy Mom Abundant Life, everyone. I'm just so grateful to be here on this show, and today I have a special guest. So before we get started, we'll talk a little bit about the show. I'm Kathy Williams, the host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life, and the conversations we have on the show are about having a full life, not only in the sense of all the roles and things that we do, but in the sense of joy and fulfillment and the knowing that the universe has our back. So today's conversation is about flirting, and my special guest today is Allison Bennett, and I'm so delighted to welcome Allison to the show. She's an actress and has taught acting all over the U.S. and Europe, and has directed trainings, seminars, and workshops. And I know Allison as a powerhouse woman who has actually ushered a school into being and has also helped me recognize that I have flirting capacities, which I didn't know. So we're going to talk about flirting today on the show and your capacities that you may not recognize, and bring out the capacities that you have that may be untapped, and possibly even help you identify when people are flirting with you, because for the longest time, I was kind of clueless on this whole subject. So, Allison, welcome to the show. I'm so delighted to have you here today.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. This is just such a fun topic, and what a fun day to talk about flirting, right?
Right. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Even if you're listening in the future.
Exactly.
Yes. So kind of an appropriate topic today. And so you and I really started talking about flirting when you came to Maui and we were having lunch together. And you have a special nickname, which I'd love for you to share with everybody. And
well, I think I'll give a little preface of how this nickname before I tell you what it is.
Absolutely.
I have spent my life, most of my life married, and a couple of years ago I became single. And so I'm starting a whole new life. It's a brand new adventure for me. And I was out I was doing some dating, just really light dating. And I was sitting across from some different guys, just sitting across the table, having dinner and whatever. And guys, all of a sudden, had this, a couple of guys had a little pop, wow, I wonder what that is. And so as we continued to talk, and this is just across the table talking, one of the guys said, Allison, you're like a walking, talking Viagra. And so that kind of became a little fun pet nickname that some of my friends and some of the guys that I know like to dub me the walking, talking Viagra. And my point is, I think we could all be the walking, talking Viagra. So that's the story behind that little nickname.
Okay, and so paint a picture for us. How would people get that impression from you?
Well, I think part of it has to do with the several components. And this also goes into the flirting. And several components is when I am sitting across the table from a guy, or, even when I was in my marriages or whatever, I like to be very present and really just set aside my role and be present and actually look into their eyes and communicate not only with my eyes and my body, but that I am open, I'm not judgmental, I'm enjoying myself, I am enjoying them. And I think for so many guys, they don't have that opportunity to be around women that aren't guarded or aren't judging them or aren't trying to find out where they're going to fall. And I think that is part of this whole feeling of them being relaxed, and as they relax, then they can allow different emotions and feelings to come up, and that could be surprising for them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And I think one of the things is if you take a look at children, young, especially 3, 4, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, if you look at them and watch them, they flirt all the time, and they flirt for a myriad of reasons. First of all, usually they're pretty joyful. They're pretty happy in themselves. They're curious, and curiosity is, wow, that is something that can just turn heads. Just being curious about somebody can really catch their attention, and it makes you feel good. It's like, oh, I'm somebody who's worth being curious about. But kids are curious, and they're playful, and they're playing with all kinds of communications. Their eyes, they're playing with manipulation a little bit. They're trying to get attention. They're trying to maybe get something, get a candy from you or whatever it is they want from you. And so they're playing with batting their eyes or cocking a shoulder or tilting a head, and that just makes them so endearing, and it allows people to just be in that playful mode, don't you think?
Absolutely. So number one, you mentioned so many things here, and the first thing you mentioned was really being present, and then that curiosity and the element of curiosity. So it sounds like whether, you're in a relationship or just meeting someone and they have the element of curiosity about you, asking questions to you, or you are trying to display interest toward them, that element of just curiosity and finding out what they're about or more about them would be kind of the foundation of a flirting relationship.
Well, yes, and playfulness. I think really it's presence, the curiosity, the playfulness, and the invitation for engagement. And that, if you look up in the dictionary, in fact, I've gone ahead and I've looked up several different definitions for flirting, but a lot of it centers around being playful, having amusement, and indicating that you would like some sort of small other little connection. You're on the pursuit of connecting somehow. And what happens is when somebody receives that, then it's like, the endorphins start going and the ego gets a little bit boosted and they can't help it to be happier, a little bit happier. And then they themselves get transported into the same type of feeling of wanting to have connection as well. And we as human beings love connection. And this is just like the beginning steps of connection. And the other thing is, many of us think flirting, that's all about, you're looking to flirt to have, to get sex, or you can only flirt with the opposite sex. And what I have learned and what I have observed is actually we flirt with friends. We flirt with our kids. We flirt with waiters in restaurants, and it's just a fun way to engage interaction with another fellow human being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I've observed you in action. And in fact, Allison and I were out to lunch here on Maui, and I sort of mentioned that this topic came up, and I said to her, "I'm not a flirt, or I don't flirt," or something like that. I don't even remember the exact words. And she just cocked her head at me, and she raised an eyebrow, and I was like, "Oh, do I?" I mean, like, she was like, "I'm calling you out because you're a liar." And I was just sort of like, really? I don't recognize that in me. But when we frame it as curious and playful and present, then I can see it. And that's not only, something that can help us get our needs met or what we desire in a relationship with a partner or get us a new partner. It is useful with a waiter or with a child or with an airline desk person. It's like bringing these elements of being really present and playfulness can actually sort of jar people out of their mundane or automatic response systems.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
you were talking about airline desk people. I mean, if we're having a problem, and a simple way of flirting, and for some people who are familiar with this phrase, is oftentimes if something's not going right at an airline desk or whatever type of a situation, just by asking in a curious manner, so what else is possible, with like a little conspiratorial smile, like, oh, this could be a fun puzzle. That is along the lines of flirting. It's like, hey, I want to engage with you. Let's try to make a connection. Let's try to solve something. Let's play with this and see what happens. And I think that it's the let's play with this and see what happens that is so inviting to people.
Yes. Yeah. And again, it is that curiosity, and it's because, I mean, I can't even imagine being an airline desk person and dealing with maybe delays and people who are frustrated at you and just all day long. And then along comes someone who's a little bit like, oh, let's work on this together. A little conspiratorial, like, oh, what else is possible? How refreshing that would be.
Right, and what it does is it's so interesting because, again, we're bodies made up of chemistry and which sparks emotions and feelings, which of course then we have thoughts. And what I love about this version or this understanding of flirtation or flirting is that you're actually just trying to you're not trying. It's not even trying. It's not about trying to flirt. It's about being the energy of playfulness, which then helps the endorphins kick up. It helps the feelings feel better. It helps the mind think differently. And it kind of does a whole mini transformation in just a second. And I think that's what's so fun. I like you talked about earlier that you didn't know you were a flirt. Can I ask you, what was your definition of flirt? What did you think a flirt or flirting was?
Oh, gosh.
For you.
I think that I can see it so much in you where you'll make eye contact and then you'll look down a little bit, or I have a friend who will twirl her hair at people and stuff like that. And I'm just, I've never been a very blatant person like that, where it's like, I'm trying to draw people in. Yeah.
So I think what I hear is that perhaps one of your definitions, before our sated lunch conversation, might have been that flirting was, an obvious ploy, strategic ploy to get something. And you seem like I experience you as a very authentic person, And so I could see how, as an authentic person, you wouldn't want to like specifically try to manipulate somebody else. And so I could see how that you may not realize that, from my experience of you, most everything you do is a flirtation with life itself. And then since you flirt with life, you flirt with ideas, and then as humans come in, you accidentally flirt. And I think it's just endearing, and it's joyful to be around. I have to tell you, Kathy, I actually was a lot like you. I have been in the public a lot in my life, and I like getting a lot of positive attention. I've had plenty of negative attention. I've had plenty of opportunity to turn negative attention into being positive attention. And at any rate, and I've had the opportunity to be around a lot of different people. And so I never caught on to flirting either. My kids were in when my kids were in high school, we would go through drive-throughs, and there would be kids in the drive-through windows, like guys who were, 18, 19, 20, 23 or whatever. And I would be just engaging in conversation with them and, getting money and laughing and, maybe I'd spill a drink. Who knows what I would do, because I'm kind of a goofy person anyway that loves to love life and engage in life and people. And we would drive away, and particularly my youngest son would say, Mom, that guy is flirting with you. And I'm like, no, he's not. We just had a little conversation. He's like, Mom, no, he was totally flirting with you. In fact, I think he was hitting on you. And I'm like, really? Like he's your age. And I didn't understand that either. And so until I started taking a look at it.
And thank you, Allison. We have so many fun stories to share after this break. So I look forward to catching up with you after the break. Thanks for listening to Sexy Mom, Abundant Life, everybody. We'll be back in just a few.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment, a philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Sexy Mom, Abundant Life with Kathy Williams. Thanks for listening. I always love to hear from you, and if you'd like to submit show ideas, after all, we wouldn't be here without listeners. We love to hear your ideas, so please head on over to meetkathywilliams.com. That's Kathy with a K, Williams with an S. And you can submit your ideas or just find out about future shows, past shows, and all the upcoming things like classes and events on my website over at meetkathywilliams.com. In fact, our show today is about flirting with Allison Bennett, and we'll return to the conversation in just a moment. I did want to tell you that Allison and I will have a whole 2-hour online class on this, and it's listed on my website under upcoming. So meetkathywilliams.com/upcoming, and you can find that class right there and join us. So Allison was just telling a story about being at the drive-thru and having people flirt with her, and she had no clue, which kind of sounds like me for most of my life, where I was like, oh, we've been talking for an hour, and oh, you want to go out with me? Huh? Like, sort of shock, and like, oh, really clueless and really cute. So, and part of it, I think, was a defense that I put up when I was younger, where I made people go through hoops in order to like prove that they liked me enough to go out with me so that I wouldn't be hurt. So I really did put up a defense to knowing that people were interested in me, like as a self-protective mechanism. So I'm not sure if you had that going on, Allison, or if it was something different for you. What do you know about this?
Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, my kids used to tease me that I lived in not even a PG world. I lived in a Disney, rose-colored glasses, G-rated world. Do you know what I mean?
You are, after all, an actress.
Well, you would think that would be probably a different kind of world, but somehow I was able to live in this little bubble of everything is rosy and wonderful, and so I wasn't devious. I didn't understand a lot of the devious stuff, and I must have had like a whole troop of guardian angels just, walking around me, making sure that I was, staying safe. But at any rate, what I think, and then I also got married really young, and I spent most of my life being married. So even if people were flirting with me or interested in me, I was married. So I just didn't allow myself to go there. So in that regard, I would say it was a defense mechanism in when I was doing it in real life. Now, at the same time, I was getting roles as, some perhaps underground resistance World War II seductress, or I was also directing other people on there's thousands of different ways to flirt. And I would have to choose which way I wanted it to be communicated, and then let the actors understand, okay, this is how subtle we want, and this is how, or how in your face we want the flirting to be. So I had the mechanics of it all, but that was my stage work. And then I went out in real life, and I was totally oblivious. So, yes, I'm sure there was a lot of defense mechanisms going there. Also, our believability, and that has to do with self-worth, too. Do we believe that we are flirtable? But I like what I like about where you are is that and there's natural flirtatiousness. And, again, flirting is a playfulness. It's an energy about life. It's an energy about everything we come in contact with, whether it be food or people or and we have our barriers down, and we're open to be curious about whatever comes into our world, and we like to play with it, and we're engaging with that. And that's a big part of flirting. In fact, when I teach, I have a class that I do. I coach one-on-one on this walking, talking Viagra. And it's usually in 3 sessions. And the first session is about being an invitation versus being desperate, being in desperation. And so you're setting the stage
definitely different.
Yes, totally different. So you're setting the stage of you. You're learning how you function as the energy of being an invitation to being talked to. I know that when I go out with my friends, I have absolutely gorgeous, drop-dead gorgeous friends, and we'll go out to eat or something, and people will maybe talk to me, and they're like, how do you do that? Well, part of it is that I happen to be a little bit more open, and then I do a few things to make myself, more accessible to people. Like my hair isn't always perfect. In fact, it's usually kind of a little bit rumpled, and so by me not being quite so perfect, other people can feel like they can engage with me and they don't have to be perfect.
I like that.
Yeah. And the other part of it has to do with barriers and judgment. And I believe both you and I, we see the world in curiosity rather than judgment. So when somebody comes into our view or into our space, we're like, I wonder what this is going to be like, and let's see what this happens. Where is this going to go? Instead of, I want something out of this person, or, wow, that person isn't good enough, or look at that. Look, their hair is cockeyed. We may go, oh, well, that's an interesting look in the hair, which also brings the barriers down in the other person. So dropping barriers. And I think the last thing is also, there's just some really easy, specific techniques that anybody can learn, whether you're a 10 or a 2. You can learn these techniques to open up and make people want to engage with you more. And some of them are, and those are some of the things we're going to talk about in our class. And a lot of it has to do with eye contact and communicating through the eyes. Some other things are what you had brought up, little tiny flitty movements. Like flirting originally had to do with flitty or short spurty movements that kind of catch the eye, it kind of tease, and it leaves the person wondering, I wonder what's next. And so that's part of it. And having open body language.
Okay, so one of the things that you mentioned a moment ago was the idea that you don't have to be perfect. I think when we're perfect, or feeling the need to be, we're a little bit uptight, which makes other people a little bit uncomfortable as well. Then you mentioned non-judgment, and I've been listening to this book. It's by John Gottman. It is called The Relationship Cure. And he gave an example of people listening to cues versus not listening to cues. And he gave an example of a couple that was on their first date. Okay, and I found it really fascinating because with the first one, not listening to cues, the guy would be like, "Oh, hi, do you live in this area?" And she would say, "No." Like, and just a one-word answer. And he's like, "Oh, so you work in this area?" And she said, "Yeah." And it's just like painful, like he had to, and then John said that, you could see how this man would start to doubt himself. Oh, she doesn't like me, because here he has to like fish hard, felt like going through mud to try to bring up, a carrot. So in the second example, he said, "Oh, do you live in this area?" And she would say, "No, but I work here." And he said, "Oh, do you work at, I think I remember when I met you saying you worked in this industry. Where is it you work?" And so he brought something out from the time they had met, like brought that up again, clearly demonstrating that he had been listening the first time. And then she said, "Oh, well, I work at this insurance place." And he says, "Oh, do you really like it?" And she says, "Well, you know what? I don't love it. I'm starting to study anthropology at night so I can kind of transition. And then he says, oh, I love anthropology. And what a different thing it is from insurance. And then she says, yeah, it's kind of boring, insurance. So I thought I'd study this maybe to transition into something more fun for me. So she's clearly like elaborating. And here he's bringing a little bit in from like where I've been listening in the past and bringing some humor in it too, which I haven't really given you guys in this little demo of it. But like, so they're engaged rather than him asking a question, her saying yes, him asking a question, her saying no. And it's really painful. and so, you know, I mean, there is this like, way that we can aid the person who's talking with us. You know, like giving a one-word answer is not aiding them. It's a great way if you want to drive someone away, right? to like, I want you to go away, so I'm going to say yes and no and maybe and yes. So
absolutely. Well, and the whole. The whole idea with the flirting is garnering engagement with another person. Engagement, not like a ring, but actually, you know, going back and forth. So when somebody asks you a question and you just say a one-word answer, it shuts the conversation down. It's a conclusion. And if they ask you a question, that's an invitation to interacting. And if we can continue with that interacting, then we can open up all kinds of doors. And what's great is I have seen a number of couples who maybe have been married a really long time, and they have gotten into, you know, over the years, they have engaged less and less, or they, you know, become defensive or whatever the deal is. Well, you can actually turn all of that around using some basic principles of quote-unquote flirting. And those principles are like what we've already talked about, is being present, paying attention, which is listening, being playful and curious, and being engaging and engaged, or interested as well as interesting. So I think those were great examples.
And I love that you say interested instead of interesting, because a lot of people, I mean, most of us are most interested in ourselves, right? And what interests us in our lives and stuff like that. So if you're willing to turn that around and invite someone to talk about themselves and what lights them up, and even ask the question, like, what's the most interesting thing going on in your life right now? I totally love asking that question because it brings things out that I never would have asked about or I never would have known about. People will talk about their house remodel or their vacation they just went on, or things that, like, when you're engaged in normal conversation, that might not even come up.
Exactly.
I'd love to ask you, Allison, you've mentioned a couple of times, and we haven't gone there yet, about the eyes and body language and openness with your body. And you're so good at that. So I know, you know, during the class that we facilitate together, we'll be on video, so people will have a better idea because they can see it. But I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, you know, there's the tried old saying of the eyes are the window to the soul. When you are looking at somebody in the eyes, you are actually being vulnerable. And human beings are attracted to some points of vulnerability. And when I say vulnerability, I don't mean like, you know, having yourself be trampled over and being a doormat. I just mean that you're not guarded, you're not putting up a brick wall, that you're opening up a window or a doorway into who you are as a being. And that is so attractive. So when you are listening to somebody, if you watch their eyes, watch their eyes and try to draw out the meaning through their eyes. And then, you know, on the little sexual side, if you watch their lips, I know that I often read lips, but if you watch their lips and their mouth, and you go back from the eye to the mouth and the eye to the mouth, and if you want to engage in a more romantic relationship as you go back from eye to mouth and eye to mouth, now you are actually creating a more sensual type of experience and interaction between people. And watching the mouth and what they're saying. Yeah, there's lots of scientific study on in just going back from eye to mouth to eye to mouth. And that is, and it's interesting because you might want to try it when you go home for dinner tonight and you're having dinner with your husband. You know, just be aware and look him in the eye when he's talking, and then watch his mouth and go back and forth and see how the conversation could change. And again, this is with the intent of being curious and playful and present and engaging, not with the thoughts of, oh, look at the way he's doing that, or he's not looking right. If you're having negative thoughts, that's going to be communicated as well, because if you're looking at their eyes, they're going to be able to see what's in your eyes a little bit. So as you drop those barriers, then people are just going to start melting. They just melt and want to be around you, and melt and want to open up more. So that's really important, having open eyes. When we narrow our eyes, like, you know, when you narrow and make them into a little bit more of a slit, that's more of a critical thing. That's engaging that logical brain. That also pushes people away a little bit. And if you want to just change that, if you're feeling people pushed away, just actually open your eyes up a little bit, or look upward, or look off to the side, and then come back. It's amazing. What also you can do with your eyes is you can engage them. Like, I'm ADHD, so if somebody walks by, like a waiter or something walks by, I'll kind of notice them. But I want to be mindful of the person I'm with. So I might, with my eyes, kind of look at the waiter, look back at the other person, and draw their eyes to the same thing that I'm looking at. So now we're both engaging in something outside of us, a waiter, and that could change a conversation and then come back. It's amazing the power we have in just our eyes.
Well, you're very good with your eyes too, Allison. I'd love to talk a little bit more about eye contact when we get back, because there is definitely something you did over lunch that really changed a lot. So when we get back, after just a few minutes, we'll talk about that and other ways to engage people in that playfulness of flirting. Thanks for listening to Sexy Mom.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me, and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Sexy Mom Abundant Life, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. This is Kathy Williams, and if you ever want to be in touch, head on over to meetkathywilliams.com. You can submit your radio show ideas. You can sign up for a free money rain exercise. And I have people actually email me and post that they listen to the free exercise from my website every single day to start their day. So I guess it's good. And over there you can also find upcoming classes like Flirting 101 with Allison Bennett and me. And we're going to return to our topic of flirting in just a moment. And before we do, just one more thing. 2 items on my website are on sale for the next few days because it's my birthday, and I'm gifting people on the website 40% off both my signature program called Radical Abundance, which is amazing. I really love to see what people change. I have people say, Kathy, this is the first year I've ever finished the year with a surplus instead of a deficit. I have people say, I've tried to understand manifestation for years, and for 16 years, and I finally get it. Other participants have told me, you know what, I finally have clarity on the direction I'm going in my life and business. And unexpected fun in the form of checks, in the form of boyfriends, in the form of all sorts of things shows up. So that's my love. I love hearing that. So that's 40% off at meetkathywilliams.com/radical abundance online right now. And then my program Money Magic is also 40% off up until Saturday. So you can head on over to meetkathywilliams.com to get that. And I'm excited to do this class with you, Allison, Flirting 101, over Zoom for 2 hours, because I think to see your eyes will be so cool. We're going to talk about that. I would love for you to talk about eye contact a little bit more, because you're really good at holding eye contact, even longer than I think most people are comfortable doing that. Would you agree?
I think, well, it's not uncomfortable for me in general, and I try to really respect other people. But, you know, as a kid, I used to do staring contests. I mean, I was forever looking for things to do, and so I would do staring contests. I would sometimes do staring contests with myself in the mirror, right?
Really?
Yes, absolutely. And I thought they were fun. And what I also learned is it's just basic communication. There's so much happens in the eye. In fact, at one point, I have really good friends that we can just look at each other and we don't actually have to speak. We can have a whole conversation just with back and forth conversation with just our eyes. But we've also practiced a long time and we know each other pretty well. So, but there's
I believe that of you, actually. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you, with your eyes, you could have a whole hour-long conversation.
That's fun. Well, and part of that is also just the art and the craft that I have worked my whole life, and particularly when back in my early 20s, I was actually on tour internationally as a stage actress and a director. And we also did communication workshops and retreats, and we worked with interesting people, like in the Austrian military, I got to work with a whole room full of generals, teaching them different ways to communicate to get their people to do what they wanted to do. It was really quite fun. And a lot of that had to do with how we communicate with our eyes and understanding and actually feeling the different communications that come out of our eyes, narrowing your eyes, you know, having a thought of criticism and feeling that, and then realizing, oh, I can receive that. Sometimes if somebody does that to me, I can receive that energy. I can feel that energy. So now I can monitor what I want to communicate with my eyes.
And you mentioned practicing in the mirror. It's so funny you practiced eyes in the mirror. I always practiced sad faces. When my mom would put me in timeout, it would be in the bathroom, and so I would like stick out my lip and look upset and see how sad and pathetic I could make myself look. It sounds like your strategy was a little bit more generative and useful.
Well, I don't know. Actually, pouty lips and pouty eyes is all a part of flirting as well, because you're trying to engage and emote a feeling. You're trying to garner some sort of emotion out of the other person. And when used in a playful way, you can use it as flirting, and it could actually be a little bit of a turn on. There's a lot of people that can be turned on, or to be excited, or to feel like a little endorphins if we want to play this little sad pouty game. So that's all a part of it. It's actually being open to play with emotions and feelings, and not only eye communication, but also your body. If you're all constricted into yourself, and you've got your elbows tight into yourself, and maybe your arms crossed and your legs crossed and your back kind of hunched and you're more like in a ball, well, that sends off a certain energy. It's a communication of, okay, I'm being protected. Well, if you're being protective and you're not being vulnerable, you're not being playful, and you're not being open to the other person. And part of this whole thing is being at ease with yourself and at ease with your safety, wherever that is, to open up a little bit to somebody else. And that invitation to, hey, come play, come engage, let's be curious, let's not have a conclusion of where it's going to go, but let's just go on an adventure and see what happens, is so appealing and so enticing, and it just makes people want to come and be a part of that.
Well, and to me it sounds a little vulnerable, and I can sense some listeners being like, ooh, I'm not sure, that sounds uncomfortable, or going out on a limb, or even, that's not me. Like defining, the way we define ourselves, right? Like me, right. Growing up, I was a good Midwestern Catholic girl. Flirting didn't really fit in with that in the way that maybe, in the way I described more, or you actually put the word on it, like a strategic ploy to get attention, right? And this sense of curiosity and playfulness is not necessarily, although it could be, a strategic ploy to get something, whether that's attention or someone to change your flight for you, or someone to carry your bag, or someone to, and
pay for your dinner, and actually, a complete stranger to pay for your dinner.
Who knows? Yeah, and you know what? I mean, my husband sometimes knows that I'm flirting with him. Like he'll be upset at me for something I've done, and yes, I've done it, and maybe I'll just stroke his arm and be like, I'm sorry, and he'll just say, you really know how to change my mood, and I'm like, yep.
I love
just
that.
With the stroke of the arm, yeah.
Well, and there's a whole list of things, techniques that we can use that communicate this kind of window to engagement, or a window and an invitation to interaction. And brief touching is one. The flick of a hair is another. Batting of eyelashes, an eyebrow raise. Oh, I'm noticing you. And it's just basically acknowledging and demonstrating that you notice somebody. And that can change a person's world. So I hear you. I've talked with so many women who have a different definition of what flirting might be, or what vulnerability might be. And when I work with my clients, we explore that, and we explore other possibilities. And we also explore how we can keep ourselves safe. Like, I'm lucky, I'm 6 foot tall, which means and being the size of sometimes taller than other men, I am not often nervous around men. And I get treated so well, and people love to go out of their way for me, especially a lot of guys like to go out of their way for me. And so I feel safe, but I also have innate, I listen to my intuition. So if somebody starts doing something that I feel like I can't dance my way out of it, I've had to delightfully dance my way out of many of potentially compromising positions, then I will walk away. And I'm okay with it. And I don't have a judgment. I don't have to say, oh, that's a bad person. I can just go, well, I'm not feeling really comfortable right now. I think I'll go do something different. Or, I think I'm just going to move my body. I'm going to pivot out of this. I used to dance as well. So I'll do like a little twirl. I kind of move my body over this direction, and then I can easily disengage out of something that might be too uncomfortable for me. And so that's
you know what?
Go ahead.
Oh, keep going. We have a little delay, so just for you and the listeners, there is a little delay. We're not trying to cut each other off.
So I think you were going to mention something.
Yeah, to me, if flirting seems like an uncomfortable activity, maybe it would be fun to just find one way to push the envelope of your comfort zone and just be with that one activity. And then if you have to head to the bathroom to disperse the energy, or, like go do tapping or whatever it is, use a tool, the clearing statement to like clear the way you feel about it, go ahead and do that, because it's like, when we push the envelope of our comfort zone, we're expanding that comfort zone, and therefore we're not so small. We're not so tightly wound. It's like, oh, okay, that didn't kill me, right? Maybe it produced the effect I wanted, or maybe it didn't, but it definitely gave me more feedback, and because we have these identifications, right? Like I mentioned, being the Midwestern Catholic girl, it's like, okay, and what else am I? Because I'm not just that, right? So yeah, how much can we just take one cue, whether it's an eyebrow raise, as Allison mentioned, or just softening body language, or the brief touching, or a twirl of the hair, or holding eye contact. One of these things, and just explore it. Is there something else you might suggest, Allison?
Sure. Also, a lot of it has to do with a mindset. So if flirting is just is taboo in your world, how about we just work with building rapport? And all of these same techniques work in building rapport. Building rapport for being a salesperson, or building a rapport in managing people, or building rapport in working with other people. We can use variations of these same techniques to build rapport. So if you're really hesitant because it's just not who you think you are, then just change it and say, okay, I'm going to work on building a little bit more rapport. And again, from my point of view, I love to flirt with life. I like to flirt with the world. I want to be engaged in it. And and I play with that. And if a human being comes into my sphere, or my circle, or my proximity, then I can just play a little bit with that. And we all have to play with it and test it out and what works for you. And I think if we can find out how we already are doing these things and just amp it up a little bit and just take a little more risk on what we already do to build rapport with other people, to engage with other people, to be an invitation to other people. And we just explore a little more, then the world is ours. The world of possibilities have just opened up to us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Allison. And wow, our time is over. Hey, everybody, come join us in Flirting 101. The details are all at meetkathywilliams.com/upcoming. Thank you so much, Allison, for being my guest today on Sexy Mom Abundant Life. And is there a way people can reach you?
Absolutely. AllisonInnovates@gmail.com.
Thanks again for being here with me. What a fun conversation.
It has been.